Hello guys, your humble DM Havoc here. So, you might be wondering what the hell's wrong with this video. Well, there's a reason I'm actually using these settings. This is essentially what a TRID broadcast would look like without any sort of augmentation or SimSense. This is what you would see in the glasses with image link. So, there's that. Session 6 went off without a hitch. I haven't talked about the previous sessions for reasons. Basically, I still have to apply a bit of creative license to them. So, no big deal. I mean, sure, a little bit of, one of the runs got a little fragged, but other than that, so, pardon. The road so far is the guys in session 3, in session 2, went to the cult compound. They ran into a little bit of resistance. They thought the guards were immediately hostile and fired on the guards. Come to find out, the guards were armed. However, didn't have any ammo. But how the fuck were they supposed to know that, you know? Well, okay, I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. The first time they went to the cult compound, they found out that the compound is populated by Dave. These are semi-anonymous, edited humans, not metahumans, made to look like clones of each other, and there are two variations. After becoming Daves, they either stay as Daves or become calculators or screamers. Screamers are pretty much useless. Their only function is to scream. They're plugged with a BioWare port in their back, just left of the lower spine. This has a rapid-fire sphincter system that feeds air into both lungs at a very fast rate, thus ensuring the lungs are always properly getting filled. The next stage of this is then the air goes so rapidly through the lungs and up out that the voice box has no idea what to do. It can't do anything because the air is moving so quickly, so it comes out as a solid, breathless scream. If anyone has had the distinct displeasure of playing the absolute dreck called Serious Sam, the headless things that run with the bombs over their heads and blow up as soon as they get near you. That's the kind of scream I'm talking about. So, the calculators, however, are the brains, essentially, of the compound. They sit, there's only 3 at a time. They sit in the sauna in 3 corners and mumble equations and write equations on themselves. Sometimes if they get close enough to each other, they write equations on each other, so on and so forth, until the equation is fully solved. Equation for what? We don't know. So, they knocked one of the screamers out, brought him back to their base of current, as to this mission, base of operations, the Thirsty Bugbear. Here, they figured out to plug the the bioport with a cork. This stops the rapid airflow. The screamer was then able to breathe normally and speak to them, although he didn't remember much. So here it is, session 6. He's still not remembering. So if I were Canis, I would use a mind probe type of spell. So session 3, pretty successful. The guys got hired to was that session 3? Yes. Session 3, the guys got hired by a Lone Star Sergeant to effectively clear out a facility, an old nuclear shelter built just outside of Reno. Well, not just outside of. It's where Bauer's mansion is today. And they found out that the place was loaded with vampires. So, fighting their way down with the help of Slod, wait, this is session 3 I'm talking about. No. Anyway, forget that I'm saying sessions. So, they went into this facility, they found vampires, and they fought their way through with Slod, the free agent hired by Relto. So, they made their way to the 3rd floor and then interrogated a goddamn bard. Well, the goddamn bard didn't give them much information, so Slod killed him. 4th floor, they came across some vampires that were not attacking. The vampire they initially contacted said, "Go that way." Second vampire they contacted, "Go that way." Third vampire, "Go that way." Fourth vampire, "Right behind me." They entered this chamber. It looked like a religious ceremony chamber. Face it, it's a nuclear fallout shelter. Some people of faith have to have their faith, so whatever. So they went in. They negotiated with the head vampire, which was actually an elf Nosferatu, very rare. The chances of becoming even an elf vampire are so slim. However, this one became a Nosferatu. So they negotiated with him. Canis pissed himself and cried like a little bitch. It was hilarious. And they negotiated, hey, we'll lock it off, but we'll get you a supply of blood packs. That way you can live here peacefully. So, the next session, they came back and they were hired to solve a murder. Quite a simple run. The location was the Kashmir, which was modeled after Club Kashmir, a club that I helped build in an older RPG called Furcadia. It still exists. The club doesn't, but whatever. So they go in, they're hired by Kashmir to figure out who murdered this mage in the arena. Well, first off, people die in this arena. It's arena combat. So they figured out that a physad named Brulas was the one that committed, well, not really committed the murder, but murdered by proxy. And they never figured out what it was in that session. So, coming to the previous session from today, session 5, they were called back, and I'm finally getting on track here. They were called back to the Kashmir by Slod, who said, "Hey, look, I know you guys, thought you got the murderer. You saw him executed, fine, and you were paid 500,000 new yen, fine, dandy. I don't want a cut of it. But I have a feeling, after talking to some of my cohorts here at the Kashmir, that you may have left the job unfinished. So Sakazashi and Faradin are waiting for you at the at Kashmir, so to help you finish the rest of the job." Well, the only hint that the guys were given is the black hooded figure was seen again in the office area of downstairs in the basement. So they went there and they discovered one office worker speaking in Russian, very intently speaking, so much so that being tapped on the shoulder by an orc street samurai did not get his attention. So the rest of the offices were empty. They did find some paperwork relating to the black hooded figure. In the very last office, they discovered a data disk. Well, not really a disk, more like drag. It's about as tall as this. And yeah, this is ancient tech. With a red button on the top. You push the red button, and out pops the hooded figure. They press the button again. The hooded figure collapsed. They pressed it again. The hooded figure rose. Pressed it again. Collapsed. And they rapidly pressed it, so much so that the hooded figure became conscious and revealed that he was formerly an arena combatant of the Kashmir Club, and that him and Brulas were best friends growing up. Well, long story short, they were faked out because Brulas didn't die. He was not executed. It was a very complex plan, essentially, to see how well the runners would do in a non-combat situation so that Kashmir would hire them. He already paid for them. Already bought out their contract, so whatever. So in off time, between 5 and tonight, they did martial arts training. They were offered mentorships, essentially, from the 5 primary characters of the Kashmir: Renlar, Sakazashi, Faradin, Brulas, and Arav. Well, Canis picked Sakazashi and was trained in Wildcat, which is a combination fighting style. It uses Muay Thai, Karate, and I want to say one other, but I can't remember it offhand. Tiny picked Brulas. By the way, when they discovered Brulas in session 5, Brulas kicked the door open so hard that it impacted Tiny, sent him flying across the room. He lost his composure and wet himself. It was hilarious. Anyway, Tiny picked Brulas and got boxing as his martial arts style. And Presto went with Ferrodin, which granted him Kali, which Kali is a Filipino martial art. So, anyway, on to session 6. They started out by testing their martial arts styles against a training bot. The order in which they went was Tiny, Presto, Canis, and Ujas. Aha! Fourth name, fourth player. Ujas is a very interesting player. German-born, as far as I understand. I don't have the full character background yet. However, I'll have his player send it to me. Ujas already came in with a martial art learned, Rus, which is the Russian Sistema. Beautiful martial art. So, Tiny beat the thing quite easily. It was all hand to hand. Presto, being a dwarf, significantly shorter, went through the thing's legs, did this kind of maneuver to the back of its knees, and it collapsed. And then he got on top of it and started wailing on its head. And down it went. Canis kind of had a little trouble getting it. It moved around. They both moved around quite a bit, and finally he brought the thing down with a kick to the spine. Then Ujas came in, and it was Ujas's first move was to wait, which adds one simple action to the next initiative round. And it waited. So, after a little bit of contemplation, Ujas runs up, takes a ballistic hit right in the thing's head, knocks it over, and he curb stomps it, destroying the training bot completely. About 300,000 new yen wasted, but Kashmir was pleased. But without any further orders, they had nowhere really to be. So they went to the cafe on the corner, Cafe Kashmir, which is much like Joe's in Reno, but whatever. And they had tacos. Then they made their introductions and acquainted Ujas with the rest of the group. and then proceeded to go to the cult compound. This is where things got interesting. For me, at least. So, they roll up in Ujas's Land Rover, and they decide, seeing as Tiny had already been seen once before here on camera, that he should stay in the SUV and monitor the situation through the comm links. The other two decided, Presto and Canis decided as well, we're going to stay in here. Both the cult leader, Lars, and the cult sergeant, Manda, they have seen our faces. If they're around here, we're fucked. So, they all link their comm links to Ujas's glasses, and Ujas goes in. Having some tactical training, he knows hug the wall, move low. He does. But while moving through, he noticed a button on one of the round couches in the relaxation center. The relaxation room of the worship center. He calls this back to them and says, okay guys, I don't know what to do. There's a button here, blah. He ignores it, goes in to the worship room, the ceremony room. Notices Lars sitting on the edge of the top step of the stage, writing in a book. Notices two goddamn bards behind him, just kind of sitting against the wall. And notices Manda just not there. That's right, I had to retcon Manda's existential status. So he starts to back out, and he says, okay guys, get in here, I'm going to press this button. So Presto and Canis run in, and they prepare for pressing the button, which is shaped like a swastika on the top of this relaxation chair. Which, these relaxation chairs are they're unnaturally relaxing. Let's say that. Upon pressing it, one moment. Well, hey, this kind of works both ways. So upon pressing the button, a hatch opens under the seat, and out walks a teddy bear drum called a bust-a-move, and it just kind of stands there, slightly wiggling, and just looks at them, kind of almost eye level with Presto, but just kind of very slightly wiggling. So they can't figure out what to do with this thing. So Ujas picks it up, runs it over to a Dave. This Dave, by the way, has been shifting in the relaxation seat. Runs it over to the Dave, hands it to the Dave. The Dave looks at it, tilts his head. And by now, the thing is wiggling quite fiercely. Dancing. And a very faint sound can be heard from its internal speaker. Ujas puts his ear up to it and hears very faintly the sultry tones of Rick Astley. That is right. I successfully, without playing the Rickroll, Rickrolled the group. So, after that, they noticed that Lars was walking out of the dining area into the relaxation room. So Canis books it towards Ujas, casts invisibility, and they both book it around the corner. Presto hides under in the chamber under the seat, which begins to move. Meanwhile, Tiny is kind of in his own world in the SUV, not really aware of what's going on anymore. Like, he was probably engaged in a sim sense. So whatever. So Presto gets spit out of the side of the building and lands 10 feet from the building on the body of their journalism contact, who they found at the cult compound in session 2. So they investigate for a bit, and then out of the blue, a grenade just sailing towards them, this beautiful arc. Ujas panics and catches it, notices that it's a grenade, hucks it. Well, scatter diagram. He doesn't huck it forward. He doesn't huck it sideways. There is no sideways in these scatter diagrams. There's forward, and it's 2 components. Backwards, and it's 2 components. He hucks it like this. It barely makes it over the wall before going boom. Quite a beautiful sight, I would imagine. They panic. They load up. They panic. They call Tiny out of the SUV. Tiny comes running with their lethal weapons, and they get loaded up. They run down the side path of the cult compound, and around the corner see a goddamn bard. Well, they immediately assume that the goddamn bard is the one that hucked the grenade. After taking 2 shots and missing, the first initiative was Tiny. His initiative was funny, to say the least. He took a shot. He was aiming here, somehow shot here with an explosive round. And then Presto took a shot aiming at the guy's knees, but ends up stunning a bird that was sitting on top of the wall. Poor fucking bird. It's sitting there living its chirpy little fucking life, and then poof, chunky salsa. Yeah, that's essentially how that shit goes. After this, the bards drop their accordions and both put their hands up in the air. Then it goes into dialogue mode. They find out that that Lars actually has no grudge against the guys. They find out that everyone there is kind of just going through the motions of something. The Daves, the calculators, the screamers, and another type of Dave that was dropped in conversation but was never really pursued. Yes, that was a hint. Well, after a moment, they call Lars out. They have conversation with Lars. a lot of what Lars said, let me preface all this by saying the goddamn bards and Lars and anyone else in that compound has no capacity to lie. That has been beaten out of them, possibly augmented out of them. But I digress. So, they converse with Lars, and they come to think that God, their God, is a human or metahuman entity and not some divine being. Lars reveals that he knows the physical form of God, but is unsure whether or not that physical form of God is connected to a non-physical form of God. Whatever. Metaphysics, I don't touch it. They make a deal with Lars to talk to their God and get Lars, to stop pursuing them. Because on their character sheets, it was added Lars as an enemy to 3 of them. All except Ujas, which makes sense. Ujas wasn't there for the initial incident. So, in all, sure, there was some massive stupidity that happened, but that's what being new is all about. It's always going to happen. You're going to do something that's going to totally frag your ass. But then you'll learn from it. You grow as a player. Your character grows as a character. You become better. And let me tell you, in the now 6 sessions with the players of Tiny Presto and Canis, I'm impressed as to how well they're adapting. I'm still having some issue with tech at the table. Now, granted, I use my laptop to do the mapping, to do the live mapping. I have a secondary laptop here to my right connected to a monitor directly in front of me that faces them. They have a mouse. They move their own characters on the digital map. And these maps are a pain in the dick to make, which is why it takes a while for me to make them. I sketch them out first. I always sketch. So, during this session specifically, one player had nothing to do with his character. Actually, the player, I'm gonna just name the fucking character, Tiny, sitting in the van. There's so much that could be done. You're jacked into everyone, comlinks wise. You could switch views from Ujas to Presto to Canis, or you could be on the comm with someone else. You could be doing research over the comm. Instead, just kind of offered, little bits of, a few words here and there over the comms. The player sat there playing a DS. I mean, okay. I get it. When you think your character has nothing to do, people tend to think that, oh, I'm a player of this character, I must have nothing to do. That's not true. So many things you could be doing. You could be making rolls. You could be on the phone with a contact. You could be checking out, doing visual perceptions on the view screens of the other characters, direct like that. And so basically I'm gonna reinforce no tech at the table, please. It interrupts the game, it interrupts the flow. Thank you for having it on mute, but still, it's an unnecessary distraction. You wouldn't do it in class. Why would you do it here? And I've had this rule throughout my DMing career. I don't like having to actually say this rule. It should be a given. But anyway, that's no big problem to a certain extent, because once action happened, boom, he was right back on it. But the only downtime during a session would be either your character is KO'd, your character is rusting, which doesn't really need to happen in session, or your character is dead. KO'd, rusting, or dead. If your character's been captured, you're gonna end up role-playing whatever's going on there. KO'd, rusting, dead. That's it. But like I said, absolutely successful run. And the new guy, the Orjas's player, acclimated very quickly. I was actually quite proud of it. So that's it for me. I've wasted 39 minutes of your time, minus the time it took me to get a drink and turn on the lights for whatever reason. So, yep, that's it for me. Thanks for watching. I am your humble DM Havoc, signing out.